My fiancée's hot yoga class ended at 10. I pulled into the parking lot at 9:58. She wasn't there, but his car was still running. By 10:05, I had the footage. By 11, her parents did too. The dashboard clock read 9:58 p.m. when I pulled into the wellness center parking lot. 3 months of the same routine had made this pickup automatic. Sandra's hot yoga class ended at 10 sharp, and she would emerge from the building with that post-workout glow, hair tied back in a messy bun, carrying her purple yoga mat under one arm. Tonight felt different from the moment I turned into the lot. Her silver Honda wasn't in its usual spot near the entrance, but there was another vehicle I recognized immediately. A black BMW sedan sat idling in the far corner, exhaust visible in the cool evening air. The license plate belonged to Kevin Marsh, Sandra's co-worker from the marketing firm where she had started working 6 months ago. I parked 3 spaces away and waited. The building's interior lights were dim, and I could see through the large windows that the yoga studio was empty. No mats on the floor, no instructor cleaning up equipment. The class had clearly ended, yet Kevin's car remained running. My phone showed 10:02 p.m. A text message from Sandra appeared on my screen stating she would be running late due to extra stretching with the instructor. The message felt hollow, mechanical, unlike her usual detailed explanations about her day. I had been noticing these abbreviated responses for weeks, along with longer work hours and mysterious phone calls that ended abruptly when I entered the room. The BMW's passenger door opened at 10:05 p.m., and Sandra emerged, smoothing down her hair and adjusting her clothing. She carried no yoga mat, wore street clothes instead of workout gear, and moved with the careful precision of someone trying not to appear suspicious. Kevin remained in the driver's seat, and even from my distance, I could see them exchanging words through the open window. My hands gripped the steering wheel as pieces of a puzzle I hadn't realized existed began falling into place. The new perfume she claimed was a gift from a female colleague. The sudden interest in working late on projects that never seemed to have names. The way she had started showering immediately upon returning from these supposed yoga sessions instead of wanting to share details about her practice. Sandra walked toward where her car should have been parked, then stopped abruptly when she realized it wasn't there. I watched her pull out her phone, presumably checking for parking reminders or messages to herself. The confusion on her face appeared genuine, but I now understood why. She hadn't driven to yoga class because she had never been to yoga class. The realization hit me like ice water spreading through my chest. Every Tuesday and Thursday for 3 months, Sandra had been lying to me with calculated precision. The yoga mat she carried was a prop, the workout clothes were a costume, and the stories about challenging poses and inspiring instructors were elaborate fiction designed to cover whatever she was actually doing during those 2-hour windows. Kevin's car pulled away from the parking lot at 10:08 p.m., leaving Sandra standing alone under the fluorescent lights. She walked to the bus stop at the corner, pulled out her phone, and made a call that lasted approximately 3 minutes. Her body language showed frustration and anxiety as she gestured while speaking, occasionally looking around as if checking for observers. I remained in my vehicle, engine running, watching this performance unfold with growing certainty that my relationship had been built on systematic deception. Sandra had been planning this routine for months, coordinating schedules and logistics with someone she saw every day at work. Someone who apparently cared so little about my existence that he was willing to facilitate this elaborate charade. 20 minutes later, a taxi arrived to collect Sandra. She climbed into the back seat, and the vehicle headed in the direction of our apartment, giving her enough time to maintain her usual arrival schedule. The precision of this timing suggested extensive planning and practice, indicating that tonight was not an isolated incident, but part of a well-established pattern of betrayal. I drove home through surface streets instead of the highway, taking a longer route that would ensure I arrived after Sandra. The extra time allowed me to process what I had witnessed and begin formulating a plan for uncovering the full extent of her deception. My background in data analysis had taught me to gather comprehensive evidence before drawing conclusions, and I intended to apply those same principles to investigating my fiancée's secret life. I drove home without revealing my presence, arriving 20 minutes before Sandra returned with a story about her car being towed from an incorrect parking spot. She seemed surprised that I hadn't received any calls about picking her up, claiming her phone had died during class. The lies stacked upon each other with architectural precision, each one designed to support the structure of deception she had built around our relationship. While Sandra showered, I began investigating with the methodical approach my job in data analysis had taught me. The Wellness Center's website showed class schedules, instructor profiles, and a member portal. Using Sandra's email and common password variations, I accessed her account within 15 minutes. The membership had expired 2 months ago, with no renewal on file. Her credit card statements, which we had shared access to for household budgeting, revealed no charges to the wellness center since July. Instead, there were recurring payments to upscale hotels downtown, restaurant charges during her supposed work meetings, and purchases from lingerie boutiques I had never seen her shop at. The financial trail painted a picture of deliberate deception funded by our joint savings account. The hotel charges appeared twice weekly, always on Tuesday and Thursday evenings, corresponding exactly with her yoga schedule. The amounts varied between $150 and $300 per visit, suggesting room service, premium accommodations, or extended stays. Each charge was followed within hours by restaurant expenses at establishments I recognized as romantic dining destinations rather than casual work meeting venues. Social media provided the next layer of evidence. Kevin Marsh's Instagram stories, which he probably assumed I wouldn't monitor, showed locations and timestamps that aligned perfectly with Sandra's claimed yoga schedule. A photo of craft cocktails at a rooftop bar posted at 8:30 p.m. on a Tuesday, when Sandra had texted me about an intensive yoga workshop. A dinner plate at an expensive steakhouse on Thursday evening during her advanced meditation class. The photographs revealed intimate details that made my stomach churn. 2 wine glasses at a candlelit table, clearly set for a romantic dinner rather than a business meeting. Kevin's reflection visible in the window of a hotel bar, showing him dressed in expensive casual clothing rather than work attire. Background music in his video posts featured romantic jazz and ambient lighting that suggested deliberate atmosphere creation. The most damning evidence came from my own security system. Our home's smart doorbell recorded Sandra leaving each Tuesday and Thursday evening, and I scrolled through weeks of footage with growing clarity. She left carrying a gym bag, but the bag's weight and shape remained consistent whether she claimed to be going to yoga, meeting clients, or attending work events. Either she packed identically for vastly different activities, or the bag served as a prop in an elaborate performance. Closer examination of the doorbell footage revealed telling details I had missed during real-time observations. Sandra's departure routine included checking her reflection in the hallway mirror, applying lipstick, and adjusting her clothing in ways that suggested preparation for romantic encounters rather than athletic activities. She carried the same gym bag, but her posture and gait showed excitement and anticipation rather than the focused determination of someone heading to exercise class. Phone records told the final story. Sandra's carrier provided detailed logs through our family plan account, and the data revealed hundreds of text messages and phone calls to Kevin's number, often lasting 30 to 40 minutes. The frequency had increased dramatically over the past 3 months, with multiple daily conversations that Sandra had never mentioned. Several calls occurred from our home while I was at work, during times when she claimed to be busy with client presentations. The call log showed patterns that revealed emotional intimacy beyond professional collaboration. Late-night conversations ending just minutes before I typically arrived home from my own work schedule. Morning calls beginning within minutes of my departure for the office. Weekend conversations lasting over an hour while Sandra claimed to be running errands or meeting friends for lunch. Text message metadata provided additional insights into the relationship timeline. The volume of communications had begun gradually in March, around the time Sandra started her new job, then escalated dramatically in June when the hotel charges began appearing on our credit cards. July showed the highest frequency of contact, coinciding with Sandra's claims about increased yoga practice and meditation workshops. I compiled everything into a folder on my laptop, screenshots and documents organized chronologically to create an undeniable timeline of betrayal. Bank statements, phone records, social media screenshots, security footage, and location data formed a comprehensive dossier that eliminated any possibility of misunderstanding or alternative explanation. The evidence was overwhelming, but I needed one final confirmation before confronting the situation that would inevitably destroy our 3-year engagement and the wedding planned for next spring. The following Tuesday, I implemented a plan that would provide irrefutable proof and eliminate any possibility of denial or manipulation. I installed a discrete GPS tracker on Sandra's car using a device designed for theft recovery, and I positioned myself strategically to document the evening's activities without being detected. Sandra left home at 7:45 p.m. with her usual routine of kissing me goodbye and promising to text when class ended. I waited 15 minutes before following the GPS signal, which led not to the wellness center, but to the Grandview Hotel downtown, a location that had appeared multiple times on her credit card statements. I parked across the street with a clear view of the hotel entrance and began recording video on my phone. At 8:20 p.m., Kevin's BMW pulled into the valet area, and Sandra emerged from the passenger seat. They entered the hotel together, Kevin's hand placed possessively on the small of her back in a gesture of intimacy that made my stomach turn. The valet interaction revealed comfortable familiarity between Kevin and the hotel staff, suggesting this was a regular arrangement rather than a spontaneous encounter. The attendant greeted Kevin by name and handed him what appeared to be a room key card, indicating a pre-existing reservation and established routine. Sandra moved through the lobby with confident familiarity, knowing exactly which elevators to approach and showing no signs of first-time visitor hesitation. The hotel bar was visible through large street-facing windows, and I watched them settle into a corner booth, ordering drinks and engaging in conversation that looked nothing like a business meeting. Sandra leaned across the table, touching Kevin's hands, laughing at his comments with the animated enthusiasm she used to reserve for our conversations. Their body language spoke volumes about the nature of their relationship. Kevin's arm draped casually across the back of Sandra's chair, her fingers tracing patterns on his forearm while they talked, the way she tilted her head when listening to his stories with rapt attention. These were the gestures of established lovers comfortable with public displays of affection, not colleagues conducting clandestine business discussions. The bartender approached their table multiple times throughout the evening, bringing appetizers they hadn't ordered and premium liquor selections that suggested VIP treatment. Kevin signed the check without examining the total, adding a generous tip that indicated either significant disposable income or a desire to maintain favorable relationships with staff who facilitated these regular encounters. At 9:30 p.m., they left the bar and walked toward the elevators. I had seen enough to confirm my suspicions, but I remained in position, knowing that documenting their departure time would complete the timeline that contradicted every story Sandra had told me about her Tuesday evening activities. My phone buzzed with Sandra's predictable text message sent at 10:15 p.m., claiming that class had run long due to a substitute instructor who moved at a slower pace. She added details about learning new poses and meeting interesting fellow practitioners, creative fiction that might have been believable if I hadn't been watching her emerge from the hotel elevator with Kevin at that exact moment. They stood outside the hotel for several minutes, Kevin holding both of Sandra's hands while they spoke in what appeared to be an intimate goodbye conversation. She straightened his collar, he brushed hair from her face, and they shared a kiss that lasted long enough for me to capture clear video evidence of their relationship. The kiss was passionate and comfortable, showing emotional intimacy that extended far beyond physical attraction. They moved together with practiced synchronization, suggesting months of relationship development and romantic connection. This was not a casual affair or momentary indiscretion, but a fully realized relationship complete with emotional attachment and future planning discussions. Kevin walked Sandra to a taxi that had been prearranged, opening the door for her and leaning in for a final conversation before her departure. He handed the driver what appeared to be cash for the fare, ensuring Sandra's safe transportation home while maintaining the fiction of her independent evening activities. The drive home took Sandra 40 minutes, during which I assumed she was creating an alibi or perhaps making additional stops to support her story. I arrived home first, uploaded the video files to cloud storage, and prepared for the conversation that would end our relationship and reveal the extent of her betrayal to the people who needed to know the truth. The evidence now included visual documentation of their romantic relationship, financial records showing systematic deception, communication logs proving emotional intimacy, and location data confirming regular meetings at luxury hotels. The case against Sandra's claimed yoga practice was airtight and undeniable, supported by multiple independent sources of verification that would withstand any attempt at explanation or justification. Sandra returned home at 11:10 p.m., carrying her gym bag and wearing the same clothes she had left in, but now I could see the subtle signs of her actual evening activities. Her lipstick had been reapplied but didn't quite match the shade she had worn at dinner. Her hair showed evidence of being styled differently and then hastily rearranged. The scent of Kevin's cologne lingered faintly on her clothing, mixed with the lingering aroma of expensive hotel soap and shampoo. I waited until she had settled into her post-yoga routine of herbal tea and stretching in the living room before presenting the evidence I had compiled. The laptop screen displayed a chronological presentation of credit card statements, phone records, social media posts, and tonight's video footage, creating an undeniable narrative of systematic deception. Sandra's face cycled through expressions of shock, denial, anger, and finally resignation as she realized the thoroughness of my investigation. Her initial attempts at explanation crumbled when confronted with specific dates, times, and financial records. The video footage eliminated any remaining possibility of claiming innocence or misunderstanding. The conversation that followed revealed layers of betrayal beyond the physical relationship. Sandra admitted that the affair had been ongoing for 4 months, beginning during a work conference in Chicago where she and Kevin had shared a hotel suite. She had been planning to end our engagement after the holidays, wanting to avoid disrupting family gatherings and wedding vendor deposits. Her confession included details that made the betrayal even more devastating than I had imagined. The Chicago conference had been partially funded by our joint savings account, meaning I had unknowingly paid for the weekend where Sandra first became intimate with Kevin. She had returned from that trip with elaborate stories about professional networking and career development opportunities, when she had actually been exploring a romantic relationship that would ultimately destroy our future together. More devastating was her admission that Kevin had been encouraging her to access our joint savings account for their hotel expenses and dinners, effectively making me an unwitting financier of their relationship. She had justified this by convincing herself that the money would have been spent on wedding preparations that were now unnecessary. The logic was twisted and self-serving, but it revealed the depth of her psychological disconnect from the consequences of her actions. Sandra's explanations became increasingly desperate as she realized the extent of evidence I had gathered. She claimed that Kevin had pursued her aggressively and that she had initially resisted his advances out of loyalty to our relationship. However, the phone records showed that she had initiated many of their conversations, and the credit card records proved she had been actively planning and financing their encounters. The financial analysis I presented revealed that Sandra had spent over $8,000 of our joint funds on her affair over the past 4 months. Hotel rooms, expensive dinners, lingerie purchases, spa treatments, and even a weekend getaway to a mountain resort that she had claimed was a women's wellness retreat. The systematic nature of the financial deception showed premeditation and ongoing commitment to maintaining her double life. Most shocking was her admission that she had been sharing intimate details about our relationship with Kevin, including our future wedding plans, our financial situation, and personal information about my family and career. Kevin had apparently found our relationship amusing and had encouraged Sandra to view me as a temporary convenience rather than a life partner deserving of honesty and respect. By midnight, Sandra had packed essential items and left for Kevin's apartment, claiming she needed space to think, but clearly having no intention of fighting for our relationship. The speed of her departure suggested that she had been preparing for this moment, possibly even hoping that I would discover the affair and make the decision to end our engagement for her. I spent the next hour forwarding the evidence files to her parents, my parents, and close friends who had been involved in wedding planning or had noticed changes in Sandra's behavior over recent months. The decision to share the information widely was strategic, ensuring that Sandra couldn't manipulate the narrative or claim that I had misunderstood innocent professional relationships. The responses came quickly and decisively. Sandra's parents called within 30 minutes, expressing shock and disappointment at their daughter's actions and apologizing for the pain she had caused. They had apparently noticed changes in her behavior during recent family gatherings, but had attributed them to wedding stress rather than relationship infidelity. Her mother admitted that Sandra had seemed distracted and secretive, taking frequent phone calls and spending excessive time on social media. My parents offered support and praised my methodical approach to uncovering the truth before making any legal commitments through marriage. They had never entirely warmed to Sandra, citing concerns about her career ambition and social climbing tendencies, but had kept their reservations private out of respect for my choices. The evidence I shared confirmed suspicions they had harbored but never voiced. Kevin's wife, whose existence I discovered through social media investigation, received copies of all evidence the following morning. His LinkedIn profile had mentioned a spouse, but Sandra had never mentioned that her co-worker was married with 2 young children. The revelation added another dimension of betrayal that extended far beyond my own situation, involving an entire family that had been deceived and potentially destroyed by the affair. The wife's response was swift and devastating. She contacted me within hours of receiving the evidence, thanking me for the information and revealing that she had suspected Kevin's infidelity but lacked proof. She had noticed increased work travel, mysterious credit card charges, and behavioral changes that aligned perfectly with the timeline I had documented. Her gratitude was mixed with rage at both Kevin and Sandra for their callous disregard for her family's welfare. The engagement ended officially that week, with Sandra returning her ring through a mutual friend rather than facing another direct conversation. Wedding vendors were contacted and deposits forfeited, resulting in financial losses that paled in comparison to what a divorce might have cost after years of marriage built on deception. The wedding venue, which had required a substantial deposit 6 months in advance, refused to provide any refund despite the exceptional circumstances. The catering company showed more flexibility, returning 60% of our deposit after I provided documentation of the relationship fraud. The photographer and florist were completely unforgiving, claiming that cancellations within 6 months of the event date violated their standard contracts regardless of the underlying reasons. Sandra's employment at the marketing firm ended within 2 weeks, not due to the affair itself, but because of the professional misconduct involved in using company travel budgets and client meeting accounts to fund personal activities. Kevin faced similar consequences when his wife provided evidence to their human resources department showing misuse of business expenses. The workplace investigation revealed that Sandra and Kevin had been claiming false business expenses for months, submitting receipts for romantic dinners as client entertainment costs, and billing personal hotel stays as professional conference accommodations. The company's forensic accounting review uncovered over $15,000 in fraudulent expense claims, leading to immediate termination and potential legal action for both employees. Kevin's termination proved particularly devastating because his wife had been a stay-at-home mother relying entirely on his income to support their family. The loss of his job, combined with the divorce proceedings and the need to repay fraudulent expense claims, created financial devastation that extended far beyond the immediate consequences of the affair. The legal implications proved complex, as Sandra had used joint funds for her deceptive activities without my knowledge or consent. A family law attorney helped me recover approximately 60% of the money spent on hotels and dinners, though the emotional cost of pursuing financial restitution seemed hardly worth the effort. The recovery process involved extensive documentation and legal filings that prolonged the emotional trauma of the betrayal. Sandra's attorney attempted to argue that joint account funds could be used for any purpose by either party, but the evidence of systematic deception and the specific use of funds to facilitate infidelity created a clear case of financial misconduct that the court recognized. Kevin's marriage ended in divorce proceedings that became contentious when his wife sought full custody of their children, citing infidelity and financial irresponsibility as evidence of poor judgment and moral character. Sandra found herself named in court documents as a contributing factor to the dissolution of a family, a consequence she claimed not to have anticipated. The custody battle revealed additional layers of Kevin's deception, including evidence that he had introduced Sandra to his children during supposed work events, creating confusion and emotional harm to young people who couldn't understand why their father's female colleague was suddenly absent from their lives. The psychological evaluation ordered by the family court documented significant emotional distress in both children related to their father's dishonesty and the disruption of their family stability. 6 months later, Sandra attempted to contact me through social media, expressing regret and asking for forgiveness, but her message revealed continued self-deception about the nature of her actions. She characterized the affair as a mistake rather than a deliberate pattern of betrayal, suggesting she still didn't fully comprehend the systematic nature of her deception. Her message claimed that she had learned valuable lessons about honesty and communication, but the language she used continued to minimize her responsibility and blame external factors for her choices. She suggested that our relationship had grown stagnant and that Kevin had provided emotional support during a difficult period in her life, framing the affair as a symptom of relationship problems rather than a cause of them. The experience fundamentally changed my approach to relationships and trust, creating a more cautious mindset about verifying claims and maintaining independent oversight of shared finances. The detective skills I developed during those weeks of investigation became useful in my professional life, leading to a promotion in data analysis where attention to detail and pattern recognition were valued. Most surprisingly, the thorough documentation I had maintained proved valuable to other people discovering similar betrayals. Friends and colleagues facing suspicious relationship circumstances sought my advice on investigation techniques and evidence gathering, creating an unexpected expertise in uncovering infidelity. The wellness center where Sandra had claimed to attend yoga classes eventually sent a renewal notice to our address, prompting a final ironic reminder of the elaborate fiction she had maintained. I forwarded the notice to her new address, along with a suggestion that she might actually benefit from the mindfulness and honesty that yoga practice was supposed to cultivate. Sandra had claimed to attend yoga classes eventually sent a renewal notice to our address, prompting a final ironic reminder of the elaborate fiction she had maintained. I forwarded the notice to her new address, along with a suggestion that she might actually benefit from the mindfulness and honesty that yoga practice was supposed to cultivate. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day, and trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.